I'm turning it on. Okay. All right.
Can you start with the difference between gray and white matter?
Yeah. Okay. So gray and white. So gray and white matter are just two, anatomically, they're two different things. And it's really based on whether there's myelin there or not. So whether the myelin sheath is present. So if there is gray matter present, there is no myelin. Okay, and then if it's white, it means there's myelin in it or wrapped around it. So when you look at an axon, right? So if here's my little axon, this is a really bad picture. The axon, normally it has myelin wrapped around it, kind of like that, right? These are supposed to be the myelin sheath. So where that is, it actually, I always think of like fat is kind of white, right? If you see fat in meat, it looks more white. So myelin is made out of lots of fat. It's made out of lipids. So it looks white. So all the myelin, so any place where the axons are is white. And any place where the dendrites and the cell body, the dendrites and the cell body, the cell body, and the knob are, it's gray because it's not wrapped up. So let me try, I wonder if I can find a picture. Let me see if I can figure out let me find a picture of a brain. So a brain image. So like, if we look, I'm trying to see one that's like a cross section here. Brain, cross section, image. Oh, really? I didn't put brain in. So, okay, so here's, this isn't the best one. Let's see what happened. It's not there. I don't want to sign into Quizlet. Like, oh, that's Quizlet too. Okay, but if you look at, that's not focused. Shoot, come on. Oh, trying to find you a good picture. It's mainly apparent if you do like a frontal cut. So you cut off the front of the brain. So if you can you see this picture?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you cut through here, so if you looked in the brain, okay, you would see that this outer cortex is it's not really gray. They call it gray, but it kind of looks pinkish gray or kind of tan. And then what's down in here is white. So the gray parts are the dendrites and the cell bodies of the axon, and then of the neuron, and then the white parts are the axons. Does that kind of help? So there's different places of the brain where they're concentrated. So that one is pretty good, except it's kind of foggy. Okay, so there are different places where you can see well, that's actually good. So there's different places where you can see the gray, okay, and different places where there's white. And if you're going to be a brain surgeon, right, you would know what each part is controlling. Does that kind of help?
Yeah.
It's easier if you do a real dissection, but if you were face to face, but we're not, so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then can you go over, oh, one thing I wanted to ask that wasn't in the notes, but it was in the book. Will we have to know about the brain development?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
And then can you go over the layers of
The
it's the
meninges.
meninges?
Yeah. So the layers of the meninges are, okay, so if we look at the layers, so start out here. So let's, whoops, I don't want to do that. I want the pen. So start out here and say, this is the skull, okay? So if you cut through somebody's skull and down into their brain, okay, so say this is the skull. So this is bone. Okay, now underneath of that, we're going to have the outermost layer. I wonder if I can make this wider. Yep. This outermost layer, which is called the dura mater. Oops, the dura mater. Okay, and that stands for tough mother. Okay, now the dura mater actually has two different layers. Okay, and one they call it the periosteal. So anytime you see oste, it's bone. Okay, so periosteal layer is touching the bone. And then the inner part is called the meningeal layer. And that probably doesn't matter, but but you need to know dura mater for sure. Okay, now under the dura mater, okay, there's a space, and that's called the subdural layer or the subdural space. So sub is below. Okay, so like in your house, you have subflooring. So subflooring is between the floor and the basement. So it's the space in between where like the pipes run. So the subdural space is in there. And it's really thin. It's potential space. It might not actually be there. Okay, then what you'll have is you're going to have another layer that's below that, and that's called the arachnoid matter. Okay, so if we go here, so there's the, whoops, arachnoid matter. So arachnoid is like spider, right? So if you dissected a brain, it would kind of be this kind of like brick red spider webby stuff. And that's where cerebral spinal fluid is going to be formed. Okay, so it gets filtered through there. The blood gets filtered, and that's where the CFS comes from. Okay, now underneath of that, that's where you're going to have subarachnoid space. And there'll be cerebral spinal fluid in there. So CSF will be in there. Okay, and then the next layer is actually going to touch the brain, and it's laying right on top of it. And that's the pia mater. And pia mater, so that's the delicate mother. That's the soft. So it's laying right on top. It's almost like it's vacuum sealed with, it's touching the brain. And it's real kind of thin. So you kind of have to pick it off with a dissecting needle.
Okay.
Does that help? So then there's the brain.
Yes, that does help. And then my only the other question I had that I think goes along with this is what the cranial dura septa is.
Oh, so the cranial dura septa, those are so the dura mater when it's wrapped around your brain. So if your brain kind of looks like this, right? The the dura septa, there's actually folds in the dura mater. So it's not just totally smooth. There's actually kind of like little segments in it. And if you guys could, if you dissected it, you would see it. But it's these kind of like a septum is a separation, like the thing in between your nose, right? Your nostrils. So the septa are kind of like little folds or in between. What's a better word to describe it? They're kind of like walls or barriers in between things. So those are the septa.
Okay.
So they're just folds in the dura mater or in the meninges. And they have names. There's parts of them, like there's some that have, like they have it, all the parts named, right? But you don't have to know all of them. But there's a few I put on the lab list that you need to know.
Okay. And then, can you go over what the choroid plexus is?
The choroid plexus, yep.
Yes.
So choroid plexus, it is this stuff, and they're actually, so they're modified capillaries. Okay, so capillaries are the smallest blood vessel, so they're itty bitty, teeny tiny. And the choroid plexus is, if you, so there's these modified capillaries, and it's found in the ventricles. So I wish I had a good picture of what it looks like. If I might have it. So it's in the ventricles in lab, and I think I might have a picture of that. There's a little video of a brain dissection, and then you can take a probe. So you can take like a little dissecting needle, and you can reach down in the spaces in the brain, and you peel out this stuff, and it's kind of like spider web stuff. So it's these little tiny, teeny blood vessels.
Yeah.
It's found in the ventricles. And what it does is it's going to help produce cerebral spinal fluid. So it's real kind of, it's like brick red spider web. If you tore down a spider web and you had it all globbed together, that's kind of what it's like. But this is the big stuff.
Okay.
So it's found in the ventricles, it's capillaries, and they make cerebral spinal fluid.
And then for the ventricles,
Yeah.
will we have to know? I know the cerebral aqueduct is the big one, but will we have to know what connects the two lateral ventricles to the third ventricle?
No, I'm fine if you know like the two lateral ventricles, and then they dump into the third, and then you go down the cerebral aqueduct to the fourth. That's fine.
Okay. And then what are the arachnoid villi?
Okay, so the arachnoid villi are, their function, okay, is to reabsorb cerebral spinal fluid. Okay, so we keep making it all the time. So we make about 500 milliliters a day. And if you just kept making it and you didn't take it back up, your head would swell. Well, actually, your head wouldn't swell because our skull is fused. We'd just get really bad headaches. So with a baby, though, if their skull isn't fused, their head can get big, right? And that's hydrocephaly. But so what happens is it reabsorbs cerebral spinal fluid. So they're these little extensions of the into the dura mater. So they're kind of like little fingers.
Okay.
And they're going to go into the sinuses, and they're going to reabsorb they're going to give us space for the cerebral spinal fluid to get reabsorbed into the blood.
Okay. And then the sinuses are just where the meninges split, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So sinuses are, usually they call them modified veins. So they're big veins, and they're found where the meninges split. So they're big veins. They're found where the meninges split, and that's where the arachnoid villi are going to dump.
And then I think the next thing I have is more about the parts of the brain.
Okay.
So could you go over it's part of the medulla, and it's the tracks that are motor and pyramids. I was confused.
Right. Okay. So in the medulla, and there's a lot, and I know other teachers probably spend more time and make their students memorize all of those. And I just kind of, okay, so in the medulla, I kind of just want you guys to know the general functions, like the big picture things for it. Um, I are you thinking about the slide where I list all the different tracks and everything that goes through there? Or are you looking in the book?
I think, as far as I know, it was in the actual PowerPoint,
Yeah.
but then I got the section about the pyramids out of the book.
Okay. So let me try to find where it is in here. I'm looking in the book. Okay, so the medulla, I want you to get the idea that if you looked at the medulla, you can see ridges on it. Okay, so if you looked at a medulla, like if you ever get to dissect the real brain, right? There are these pyramids on them. Okay. And what happens with those? And I don't expect you to memorize, right, that the corticospinal tracts are going through it. I just want you to get the idea that these pyramids, they actually cross, right? And they call that the decussation. I'm not doing a very good job drawing it. Decussation of the pyramids. Okay, so anytime you have decussation, that means something's crossing. So basically, the information from the right side of your body is coming up and it's crossing over to the left side of your brain and vice versa. So that's good. Okay, I don't want you, I'm not worried about the peduncles and all that kind of stuff, but I do want you to know that the medulla oblongata, it has the cardiac center. So it's got the cardiovascular center, which is really important, right? Because it's going to keep you alive. It's going to help you. It's how you're going to breathe and how you're going to regulate your, not breathe, how your heart's going to beat and how you're going to regulate your blood pressure. Okay, so cardiovascular center. So you got cardiac center. Okay, so this is going to regulate the rate and strength of your heartbeat. Okay, and then it also has the vasomotor center. And what that's going to do is it's going to regulate the size of your blood vessels. So it's going to regulate blood pressure. It has a respiratory center. So that's going to regulate breathing. And that's good for that. I know they have more about like what cranial nerves are going through it and all that kind of stuff. And I think this is enough for what we do for our class.
Okay. And then for the midbrain, can you go over the different internal nuclei of the gray matter?
Yeah, the midbrain. So then if we go to the midbrain, okay, so the midbrain is going to be superior to the pons. Okay, so let me try to find a picture. Okay, I don't have I need, I know, see, these are things that I don't spend that much time on, and I don't know if it matters or not. Okay, so the midbrain, what it has that, well, all of it's important, right? But the parts that I think you need to know, all right, are, do I even have, do I have substantia nigra on there? I don't think I do.
I think on the PowerPoint you must have had the names of them, but not the descriptions of what they did, because I think I got the actual like definition of them out of the book.
Right. Okay, so substantia nigra, okay, the red nuclei. Okay, and then we have the reticular activating system, and then the corpora quadrigemina. All right, so if we look at this, okay, so the substantia nigra, okay, so it looks darker, and it has to do with dopamine production. Okay, so that's where dopamine comes from. So it has your pleasure centers, okay, and how you respond to things like emotionally and pleasure and pain. Okay, it has to do with how you stay erect, okay, and it also has to do with now I'm messing up. I'm trying, which is the one that has to do with how you move? That must be the pons. The pons has the like whether you're breathing and regulation. Okay, so just go with that. So just do substantia nigra, dopamine, pleasure center. The red nuclei I don't usually talk about very much. Okay, now the reticular activating system, it is all of the nuclei or the gray matter in the brainstem, and they work together to help you determine like if you're conscious or not. So how you're aware, if you're breathing, what's happening. Okay, now the corpora quadrigemina, they're divided into two things. Okay, so they kind of look like this. If you look at them from the back of the brain, it's so corpora means body, right? And quad is four, and gemina is little gems. Okay, and there's four of them. Okay, the top two are called the superior colliculi, and the bottom two are called the inferior colliculi. Okay, so the top two, what they're going to do is they're visual reflex centers. So they're going to help you track something if it's walking in front of you. It's also going to help you if like something flashes in front of your face, right? Like how you turn to something going around you. Okay, now inferior colliculi kind of do the same thing, but they do it to sound. Okay, so visual reflex. And down at the bottom, they call it auditory reflex. So if somebody like drops something in front of you that's loud, all right, those are what's going to kind of make you aware of what's going on and how you're going to pull your head back. But all of those things are part of the midbrain. Yeah. Oh, so this is right. The red has to do with, this is the involuntary stuff. Like once you get started walking, the midbrain helps you keep moving through that process so you don't have to think about it.
Okay. Could you also go over the reticular formation? Because I think what was confusing me about this is it's not like a exact structure.
Right, it's not. So it's a group of structures that work together. So it is all of the gray stuff. Now, is there a good picture in the book? There used to be a better picture. Well, no, I don't see one. So the reticular formation, they also call it the reticular activating system, or RAS. So basically what they are is it is all the gray matter. Okay. So the gray matter, which would be the nuclei, and they're through the brain, the midbrain, the medulla, and the pons. So it's all that kind of information. And what it's doing is it's going to detect sensory information. So sensory information is going to go in, motor information is going to exit it. And the idea is it is going to kind of help you figure out where you are, if you're conscious, and kind of what's going on around you. So it's just taking all the different stimuli around you and kind of processing it so that you're just aware of where you are and what time it is and what's going on. Does that make any sense at all?
Yes. So
So
if
if
something were to
somebody
damage
takes a
that,
bunch of barbiturates, if somebody overdoses, it actually damages those neurons. Okay, so if they go into a coma, that's what's going on usually, is this is messed up. So it's not taking the stimulus that says, oh, look, it's daytime, or look, you're in the hospital. It's not getting processed properly.
so if that was damaged and a person wouldn't be able to figure out, or I guess if that was damaged, a person wouldn't be able to say, like, oh, I'm at home right now.
Maybe, yeah, probably not. They might just be kind of in a vegetative state.
Okay.
Yep. So they don't know what's going on. So they're there, their eyes might be open, and they're alive, but they might not be aware of what's really happening around them. So sometimes they'll move and they have some reflexes, like you could hit their knee with that little hammer and their reflexes would react, but that information is not going to their brain and it's not being processed.
Okay. And then for the cerebrum,
Yeah.
just basically not broken down at all. That's just how we think, right?
Yep. That's our higher order thinking. Yep.
Okay. And then can you go over the different the like central and lateral sulcus?
Focus. Yep. Okay. So when you look at the brain, I'm trying to find a picture. When you look at the brain, okay, there's sulci everywhere, right? So sulci are just the indentations. So there are some big ones that divide it up. I'm trying to find a picture where I can. And if you look at one, you can see them, sort of, right? You kind of have to know what you're looking at. Because sometimes I look at it and I think, I'm not sure. So if this is the front, right? These are your eyeballs, and this is the cerebellum, okay? And we're looking at the front, trying to find a picture. The central sulcus, okay, kind of goes down like this, kind of separates the front from the back. Okay, so that's eye. If you're looking at it, if you're looking at the brain from the top, okay, so this would be like an anterior view. So if you're looking from the top down, okay, whoops, this isn't very good. This would be the lateral sulcus. Okay, so it separates hemispheres. So, or halves. And the right and left half. And the central separates front and back, or more like lobes. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, I did wrong. You're right. So this is not the lateral. What is this one? That's got a name. Uh-oh. I'm having a brain fart. Do you remember what that one is? The lateral is going to be on the side. This might be the transverse. Okay, so the lateral, this is longitudinal. I'm sorry. This is not right. This is longitudinal. I have too many. Okay, longitudinal. So just, I don't want to put the wrong thing in your head. Okay, so then the lateral, right? You should have stopped me right off the bat because you knew it.
I didn't know.
That's okay. So then lateral is on the side. Okay, so lateral kind of goes like this red line. This is lateral. I think they're hard to see. Like you have to know what you're looking at. But if you look at a brain, but if you were like a brain surgeon and you were looking at brains all the time, you would know how to look for them. But they're like the key landmarks or the dividing lines between the lobes. Okay, so then down here you'll have a temporal lobe, right? And then the central sulcus, then you'll have frontal, and then you'll have parietal, and then occipital is back here, and then there's another sulcus back there. Sorry.
Okay, it still makes sense.
It does?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I know there are 4 main lobes.
Yeah.
But the insula,
Yeah.
that's on the inner part, right?
Yeah. So if you peeled all of this off, right, at the top of the midbrain, right, the insula is inside of there. I'm trying to see if there's even a good picture in the book that says insula. The insula is deep. So
Like
it's
in the
insulated.
book,
Yeah.
in the book, it just has it under the picture that's saying the association areas, which is why I was kind of confused on where it was at.
Yeah, it's deep. So you have to kind of peel off the outer layer. So it would be, if you looked at this, it would kind of be like up in here, like where the temporal lobe is, but deeper. And honestly, this looks like an ice cream cone, and at the top of it is the insula.
Okay.
Yeah, there aren't any really good pictures of it in it, are there?
And then I know in the video where you reviewed the PowerPoint, you said we didn't have to memorize the specific names of the tracks,
Right.
but can you go over the general types of them?
Yeah. So there's three general types, right? Now I was just looking at that. Okay, so there's three general types. So if I make this is like the frontal section of the brain, right? Which that's not very good. But this, if you're looking at it from the if you did a mid sagittal or a frontal cut and you were looking at it straight on, and this is just kind of like the picture in the book. Okay, so there's so remember that the tracks are white. So if you cut through this, this is going to look, oops, hold on, I got to let Gigi in. Okay, she's in there. Okay, so tracks look white. Okay, so if we go from side to side, okay, so between hemispheres, those are called association tracks. No, not association, commissural tracks. So commissural tracks connect hemispheres. Okay, so both sides. So one example of that, that's the corpus callosum. Okay, projection tracks go up and down. So they're going to go longitudinally. So they're going to connect information that's coming up the spinal cord and maybe through the brain stem to the cerebrum. So that's the way they're going. And then association tracks, those stay within the hemisphere. So they're just kind of bouncing around like in between. So they stay in between. So these are probably like more specific. Does that kind of help? Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. But it's just how things are connected. So sometimes, like if somebody had epilepsy, sometimes they would cut this connection between the two halves. Or sometimes if they remove part of somebody's brain, then they separate those connections.
For the limbic system,
Yeah.
do you want us to know specifically, like if you were to give us a picture of the limbic system, would you want us to be able to name each individual part of it?
No.
Okay.
Nope. So for it, make sure it's just like big picture for the limbic system. So it's really like memory and emotions and how we experience them, how we interpret stuff, how you remember things. Yeah, I'm not going to give you a picture and ask you to identify any of that.
Okay. And then can you explain the difference between the primary cortexes and then their association area?
Yeah, so primary and association. So the primary area is where, and this is my simple way of trying to explain it. The primary area is where the initial information from the sense goes. So like the primary visual area would be where the information from your eyeball, right, when it comes in from your retina, where it actually goes, right? And then the association area is going to be what's there to help you connect what you're seeing and interpret it. So like if your primary area is working, you can hear or you could see or you could taste. But if the association area isn't working, then you don't know what you're seeing or what you're hearing or what you're tasting. But if the primary area isn't working, then you're not getting any of that information in. Oops, I can't write primary. So they have to work together so that your brain works, so that you know what's going on. Now I'm trying to see if that's in the summary at the end of the chapter. It's not. Yeah, it's just says they're there.
And then could you also explain what the prefrontal cortex does?
So the prefrontal cortex, okay, so that is where the prefrontal cortex is what's going to allow you to make good decisions. I'm trying to find where it is in here. Frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex, I know I'm trying to see where it is in the book. Sensory areas. Functional areas. So the I always think, okay, they say, right, that as you're developing as a teenager, the prefrontal cortex, especially in males, may not develop till 21 or 22 years old. Okay, so the prefrontal cortex is where you may have good judgment, or where you make good decisions, where you might have impulse control. It's kind of decision making, planning, so that you know, okay, I got to do the homework today because it's due tomorrow, or if I have time on, I have time today. Okay, so say you give a test and it's during the lab time, but you say you can take it home, right? So if the prefrontal cortex is well developed, you might say, oh, I don't have to meet for lab. I'm going to use that time and I'm going to work on the test, instead of waiting to the last minute and turning the test in at the due date, like exact due time or something. So the prefrontal cortex is really kind of your personality and how you behave. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think I was just getting confused because it was talking about like the stuff from hypothalamus and the amygdala, and I was like, but that's not part of the limbic system, and then I just got
No, right. So yeah, so the prefrontal cortex is really your cerebrum, right, and higher order thinking, but it's got to do with judgment and figuring out what's going on. So like the frontal cortex has a lot of personality stuff in it, but the prefrontal is even more specific parts of the personality.
And then I guess the last thing, if you have time, can you go over the cranial nerves?
Yes, the cranial nerves. Okay, so let me turn the page. Oh, the cranial nerves. Okay, so let's just start with numbering them. Okay, so, and I think it's important that you know the Roman numerals. Okay, in some places you don't learn them anymore. So the Roman numerals are 1, 2, 3, and then this is 4, right? Because 1 becomes before 5, and that means it's 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then 9. So 10 is X, right? So this is 9. So 11 and 12. Okay, so I'll just go through and I'll just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so lots of times they use the Roman numerals. Okay, so that's important. Okay, now the cranial nerves, like there are lots of little mnemonics to remember them by, right? The one I always use is probably not appropriate, but it says O, 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 which may not be appropriate. The one in the book might be better because it gives you more, well, I don't know. O, 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 to touch and feel very good, very awe, so AH. So a student made that up a long time ago. Okay, so that's the cranial nerves. Okay, so those are the first letters of each of the cranial nerves. Okay, so the first one is olfactory. Okay, so that's smell, right? The second one is optic. There's other little acronyms that go with that people use. There's some that are more descriptive that help you kind of remember what the um what the nerve is. But this is the one I always use. Okay, so optic. So optic is vision. Okay, so it's going to take the information from your eyes. Okay, now the next one is oculomotor. Okay, now the thing about the nerves is they either have sensory function, okay, so they're detecting something, or they're making something happen. They have motor function. Okay, so some of them have both, and they're called mixed, so they have sensory and motor, but ocular motor only has motor function. Okay, and if you look at this, oculo is eye, right? And motor is movement. So basically what it's got to do with has to do with eye movement. And there's way more details than that, but this is good. Okay, I'm fine with that. Okay, now the first T is trochlear, which is a weird word. Okay, and trochlear also has to do with eye movement, and that's good. I don't need you to know any more specific than that. Okay, now the next one is trigeminal. And trigeminal has 3 branches. So it's a big one. It goes all the way around your face. Okay, so it is going to have sensory information from your head and your face. Okay, so sensory. So it's going to detect like pressure. So sensory from the face. And it also has to do with chewing and kind of moving your face. So it's a big one. Okay, now the next one, the next A is abducens, which is another lovely word. Okay, abducens is another eye movement. Okay, so for eye movement, you can remember oat. Okay, so oat, there are three nerves that are going to help move your eyes. Okay, so ocular motor, abducens, and trochlear. Okay, so those are eye movement. Okay, now the first F is facial. Okay, and the facial, it actually has 5 branches. Okay, so it has to do with taste. And then I just always put it's like the touch and movement of your face. Okay, so it's got, we can put tears, um, facial expression, like if you're frowning or not frowning. Okay, so there's 7, right? Now 8 is vestibulocochlear. Vestibulocochlear. And that's a lovely one, right? So the vestibule is part of your ear, and so is the cochlea. So it actually has to do with hearing and equilibrium. So if you have your, if you can balance or not. Like if things are spinning, like if somebody has vertigo, sometimes it's caused by something going wrong with this nerve. Is that kind of, you still with me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next one is another one that's fun to spell. It's glosso, which is tongue, and pharyngeal, which is your pharynx. And now glossopharyngeal has to do with taste and swallowing. Okay, now the next V is vagus. Okay, so this is the only cranial nerve that actually goes all the way down to your heart and your abdominal organs. Okay, so the vagus nerve, it's going to take information back and forth. It does sensory and motor. And it is one, so it will, I don't know how to explain it. So you can use it to regulate your heart, right? So if you bear down on your vagus nerve really hard, like, which means just like pretending that you're gonna go to the bathroom, it will actually slow your heart rate down and decrease your blood pressure. So it does a whole. The big thing about it is it's the only one that goes down all the way to your abdomen. Okay, now A is for accessory. Okay, and it does the, I always think accessory, it's like a scarf around your neck. So it innervates the muscles around the neck. And then the last one is hypoglossal. So if you think hypo is below and gloss is tongue, right? So it's going to innervate the muscles under your tongue. So it allows you to talk and swallow. Okay, so there's like a cheat sheet for them. It's got everything on them. And I don't usually make you memorize where they are on the brain. Because I always figure if you're going to do brain surgery, they're going to spend a lot more time going through all the parts of the brain with you than you actually have time for here. But you should know in general, especially if you want to do dental hygiene, they really spend a lot, like you'll take a head and neck anatomy and have to go through and do all of them.
I think that's all the questions I had for chapter 13.
Okay. All right. Do you want to do the one for 14 or do you want to wait?
Probably wait, just because it's about the anatomy of it.
Okay. All right. That's cool. That is totally fine.
But we don't have no exam in chapter 13.
This is all on 13.
No, I mean, this exam coming up is not on 13.
Nope, it's not on 13. It has 5, 12, and 17. So
This
endocrine,
information
there's just a couple questions on tissue and basic nervous physiology and what a neuron looks like. All right, so you guys okay? Sorta?
Yeah, I think so far.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll save this and get it posted. All right.
Okay.
I keep do the definition for the essay. I just talk about the neon, that's it, right?
You do the essay, just put it in D2L. Yep.
About, yeah, and how many pages it has to be?
There's no, as long as it covers the information there, you don't have to give me, there's no requirement for pages.
Oh, this, how many pages do I have? It doesn't have any requirement?
If there's no requirement,
Okay, good. Sorry.
it just has to answer all those questions.
There is no question in the essay, just have the essay.
Yeah, it's, so you saw the list of, it just says exactly what to do.
No. I keep
No.
watching the videos and I put my information about the neon.
Yeah, so there's I can email it to you. It should be right there with the videos. There's an assignment, and when you go into the assignment, I think that's where the I'll email to you. Make sure you're looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, because I watch the video and I just explain about the
Yep.
neon. That's all I do, explain about the neon.
That's it. That's what I'm looking for.
But I don't see no question doing it. I just explain what is known, what is this segment. That's all I do. The segment about the shape, the purple. I give the estimation about the purple, the long thing, the ozone. I explain about that, but I don't see no question.
That's great.
Thank you.
All right. So if you guys are okay, I will close this up and save it as a video.
Don't forget about maybe the question, because I did not answer the question. I went to over the, I just explained, like you said before, just explain about the neuron.
Right. That's all I want you to do, right? Just really go through what the videos cover and explain.
Yes, that's what I did.
Understand how a neuron fires. What channels are involved. How it works.
Yes. I did that.
I'll email you the thing. Let me stop sharing the screen and then I'll go in there and email it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay, hold on. And I'll email. There you go. Let's neuron. Let me try to find it. Where did I put it? Neural.
I'm gonna go ahead and head out of this meeting, but I will see you next week, Dr. Blank.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Here, I'm emailing it, Gigi.
Okay. I have a question. Last time I was listening to your radio, you said you have a class online that you want somebody to participate for the biology.
Which, no, I don't have.
You're asking who's taking nursing, they can participate.
Say that again.
I was listening, I would forget what you say. It's like a seminary for biology that you're doing. And you ask if she got a friend that can participate.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, you were asking the lady if she got any friend that can participate, like you're doing a seminary for biology.
Like basic biology, like Bio 113.
No, it's like you're teaching class. If she wants to participate, I don't remember the name of the course that you're doing.
I can't. You're breaking up. I can't understand what you're saying.
I was watching one of your videos,
Okay.
and you said that you're doing some class biology or the other biology program online on the videos.
Oh,
If she
I
got
don't
any
know
friend that
what
can participate in the nursing, that can participate on it.
I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, I forgot the name of the course. It look like a seminary that you're helping for the nursing program for people who goes to the nursing.
Oh,
Taking.
I don't know. Because I don't usually do anything like this. I do anatomy and I do micro.
Mm-hmm.
But that I don't. So if you figure it out, let me know because I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I will listen to you. I will go over to the video again.
Okay.
I forgot. All right. And have
All
a
right.
good day. Thank you. Don't forget to mail me the paper.
Yep, I'm sending it
Thank
right
you so
now.
much.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.